let's talk about how we register satiety and fullness and what to actually do about it, okay? Now, here we go. So I promise some tips coming up. So there's two mechanisms for meal-to-meal fullness. It's really important that you know this. So first is via neural feedback, and two is via hormonal feedback. So food, basically, I'm just going to give you a really quick, this is the last bit of science, and then we'll get right into what you need to do to avoid this. But hopefully I've given you enough reasoning for not just do this, but why you should do this, okay, and why this is important. So food goes into our stomach and stretches it, okay? That's just what happens. Now, the vagus nerve, there's a nerve that communicates with the brain and it delivers neural messages about fullness. So it says to our brain, oh, we've stretched our stomach, there's pressure, you've eaten your fill. After partially digesting the food, food is then obviously gradually released into the small intestine, where digestive enzymes act on the food to break it down and absorb nutrients, blah, blah, blah. Now, as those digestive hormones are released, our brain also receives this information and these hormonal markers and it says basically, whoa, we are digesting food, we are really full here, and we don't need any more food for a little while, okay? That system isn't always perfect and doesn't always communicate the number of calories or the amount of calories is coming in as a marker of fullness satiety. It's more the types of foods and the components of the foods that are better markers. Now, because of this, we can take advantage of this basically by choosing certain foods and nutrients to help us feel fuller quicker. It's been a long day, and for longer periods of time, okay? Now, there was some research published in 1995 by Dr. Susanna Holt and her colleagues, and she gave us a very powerful insight into what influences our fullness and how we can use these foods to our advantage. Now, the idea behind this study was simple. They recruited volunteers to rate how full they felt after consuming 240 calories, so exactly the same calories of food, exactly the same calories, but in different foods. And here's what they found. So white bread, surprise, surprise, had a low satiety rating compared to wholemeal or whole grain bread. So bakery items, and some of these guys, you guys have listed them, right? So bakery items such as cake, donuts, and pastries had the lowest satiety index, meaning they registered the least in fullness, so you could go and eat more straight after you'd eaten them. It was like you'd never eaten them. However, fruit, meat, and beans tended to have the highest satiety value, and plain potatoes were off the charts. Now, for my potato lovers, let me just pause right there. So plain potatoes were very, very filling beyond any other food. Now, Holt suggested that simple whole foods were much more satiating, so foods like fruit, potatoes, meat, and seafood. So I want to just give you a little bit of a summary of that research, and this is really where we want to base a lot of our, I would say 80% of our food choices, okay? So if you're going to take anything from this, I want you to take this. So here are the 5 satiety clues to remember. And this is based on that early research, and we've obviously been able to add to this, because obviously this has been research over the last sort of 20 years. So number 1, the higher the calorie density of food, the less filling the food was. The higher the volume of food to calorie density, the more filling it was. So for example, something like porridge versus crackers. They've got similar ingredients, but porridge has a greater volume to calorie density, and it was reported to be more filling. Same with something like, here's the example of potatoes. Now, plain potatoes, so say like steamed potatoes or boiled potatoes, they are just the plain potato it doesn't have, compared to say French fries, which could be the same volume of food, but the calorie density is going to be significantly different because of what we do to it. We fry and we add, a crap load of salt, which is going to increase the palatability, and it's also going to make it way less filling, so you can eat French fries at any time of the day. Now, number 2, so basically the higher in calories, the more we eat, the lower calories, the less we eat. Number 2, the higher the palatability of the food, the less satiating it was. And this is consistent with what we've talked about earlier, right? So how our brains can push past the barriers of fullness to eat more high-calorie foods because we view them as highly valuable and that we should eat more of them, right? That second stomach when the dessert menu comes out kind of factor. So really rich tasting, high calorie, high fat foods, are really going to, they're going to be less satiating than something that is a little bit plainer and going to not encourage us to eat quite so much. Number 3, you'll see, so fat, but there's a caveat here, okay? So in this research, so the amount of fat was a factor in delivering less fullness, but it comes with a caveat. So when fat was delivered through refined foods such as cake, chocolate, pastries, biscuits, you get the picture. This is where the satiety index basically nosedived, right? It was really not satisfying. You think about it, right? You can just have a bit of cake and then go back for a little bit more cake and a little bit more cake. That's how this works. However, when fat was consumed in the context of our everyday healthy diet, so things like in the presence of things like meat or fish, which has got a little bit of natural fats, eggs, dairy, nuts, avocados, fat actually helped with satiety. Obviously, when you keep fat within reason, right? So it's when it's in a really highly palatable and very highly processed or rewarding food combinations, that's when fat gets us into trouble. Number 4, is fiber. So the fiber content, again, this is kind of like the last 2, it's sort of like duh, I feel like, but let me explain why. So the fiber content also influenced post-meal satiety. So the higher the fiber, the greater satiety factor. So the whole white versus wholemeal bread, you've got more fiber in wholemeal bread. That's the only thing that we can explain that's going to improve satiety. So this could have to do with 2 reasons. Number 1, it could be that, it's going to feel heavier in our stomach, so more pressure on that nerve saying, stop eating, you've had enough. Or it could also be the fact that it's slower to digest, and so we're digesting food over a longer period of time. Either way, high fiber, good. And finally, protein played a major hand in how satisfying a meal is. So the higher in protein it was, the more full you felt. So again, no surprises really there. So guys, how are we going there? So hopefully this has been interesting for you. So those 5 things again. So comment below. Let's have a little moment of self-reflection. I'm going to share one more thing that's going to be super important in managing cravings, and it's not what you think. So just comment below of one of those 5 satiety cues. What is the thing that you can improve on right now? Is it improving the fiber content of your meals? Is it getting rid of some of those really highly palatable processed foods? Is it thinking about maybe not, looking at is meal variety or high calorie foods? What are you going to work on? That's really what I'd love to know. And while you're sharing that, I want to share one more thing. And that is actually, before I share that, I'm going to hold off on that. Oh, no, I'm going to share it now. So I want to share, I know we always talk about how important sleep is, but I really want to talk about why that is. So we talked about the lipostat. Now, Jen's hungry and wants chips. I think that was you, Jen.